In all my time in practicing and teaching the method, I've seen a lot of people struggle with long-term goals. These are goals that they've written down, and they've had written down sometimes for years. And while clearly they want them, they just can't seem to make any progress towards having them. Now, I've been there myself, and today I want to share with you what I found to be the key to manifesting long-term goals. Check this out. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, the simple way to self-realization. So if you want total control of your mind and more happiness and abundance in your life, then you've come to the right place. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. You're going to love what we show you, primarily because it is 100% experiential, meaning you don't have to believe anything that I say, but try what we show you, take it for checking, and see the results that you get. And if you're a regular here, you love the work that we do, and it makes a big difference in your life, then let us know. Hit the like button below and share this video with your friends. Let's spread this amazing work with the rest of the world, and also share your gains. And any questions that you have, drop those in the comments below, and I'll jump in whenever I can and answer those for you. Now, I want to talk about one of the most popular facets of doing this work, this amazing releasing work that was given to us by the master, Lester Levenson. And one of the best applications of Lester's method that he gave us is to use it to work on goals. Like he said, if you really want to be a master, it's not what you say, it's what you do. Prove it. Be a winner in life. Work on goals. And working on goals is a great way to bring up the garbage, bring up the negativity, bring up the programs that say, I can't have it, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, and on and on and on. And just release all that negativity, all those negative thoughts, all those negative feelings. By using the method, you could prove, like I said, you prove it to yourself that you could release this stuff, and you don't have to listen to that negative nonsense anymore. Now, when it comes to goals, my teacher, Larry Crane, when people used to ask him, well, okay, I'm working on my goals. How long should I expect to be working on them until I see results and determine, if I need to do something about, the results I'm getting or not getting, right? How long should it take to manifest that goal if I'm releasing on it? And his default response was always about 2 weeks. Now, to most of us, that seems like, what, 2 weeks? I've had goals I've been working on for years. What do you mean it should only take 2 weeks? That seems impossible. I just have so much garbage. I have so much noise in my head that's telling me that I can't, and so on. How am I supposed to let all of that go in 2 weeks? Well, it basically coincides with something that Lester used to always tell the graduates, including Larry, when he used to nudge them about going free, about dropping the ego, going all the way. And what Lester used to always say, and this is what he said to Larry, is, Larry, how long does it take to do a 2-week job? Now, that's a very straightforward question, right? And the answer is 2 weeks or less. And that's where Lester's coming from. And when he used to ask this question to Larry said that he used to squirm in his pants. It's like, yeah, I know, Lester, I'm working on it. And Lester was, again, very direct. It's like, don't work on it. Get it done. How long does it take to do a 2-week job? And so, basically, that coincides with that timeline of, well, how long should it take to achieve a goal, even a really big, outrageous goal, like a big money goal that I've been working on. How long should it take to release on that and actually see that money show up? 2 weeks or less, according to Lester, according to Larry, and according to a lot of other graduates who have manifested such goals that they've worked on. Now, what do we do about that? If that is the base timeline, the timeline that we should be measuring ourselves by, and we're not getting it, well, what do we need to do to correct that and actually meet that timeline? Well, the answer to that goes down to one of the major lessons that's integrated in the basic releasing course, like the 21-day Mastering Your Fate course that we have here. I'll put a link to it right up there. You want to check that out. It goes through all of the fundamentals of Lester's method, teaches you the foundation of everything that you really need to know about using the method successfully and going all the way with it. And this major lesson also shows up in every advanced class and retreat that we do, because it really is a fundamental aspect of stepping up, being the boss, being a master, just like Lester and so many of these other great masters demonstrate. I am a master. I'm a master in the whole universe. There's nothing that's outside of my scope. And that's even what they teach in the Bible, right? That we're all part of God. And if we're a part of God that is everything, then that means that we, in our essence, is the essence of everything. So if we're going to step up and demonstrate that major lesson that's in the basic course and all these other advanced courses is all about taking responsibility. And Lester has a great discussion about taking responsibility. And we read what Lester says about that in every single one of these courses. And we have a number of exercises that we do to apply taking responsibility. But the general gist of it is this, is if you want to prove that you are a creator in life, a master, you must take responsibility for everything that happens to you, good or bad, right? So even if something bad happens to you, take responsibility for it. Because if you did it, then you can change it. If your attitude is, I didn't do it, it just happened to me, then where does that leave you? That leaves you being in the place of a victim in a world that pushes you around. But by taking responsibility, and the key is it's not about beating yourself up or getting down on yourself or anything like that. It's just recognizing, hey, I did that. I caused that to happen to me, that pleasant or unpleasant experience. And if I did it, even if it's an unpleasant experience, then I can change it. I can turn the whole thing around. Otherwise, if I don't do that, then I've got nowhere to go. I'm just kind of lost and being, a wisp in the wind, just being blown wherever the winds take me. And that isn't the case. That's not how masters operate. Now, this is a great attitude to take responsibility for bad things that might happen. Also, it's an attitude that we should take in regards to our goals. So if we were working on a goal and we're not getting that goal, then the same way, we've got to take responsibility. And a great question to ask ourselves in the face of, all right, I've got this goal, I've had this goal for maybe a couple of years now, and I'm nowhere closer to getting it. Well, just ask yourself, when am I causing this not to happen? Now, this isn't an exercise of going into your mind and spinning around trying to figure it out. That's going to get you nowhere. You start asking your mind for an answer to that question. It's just going to take you down a negative path. Basically, it's just going to lead you into a direction of beating yourself up or judging yourself or comparing yourself to others. That's the way that the mind works. So it's not about asking the mind, but it's about just posing that question and just taking whatever comes to you. And it's like you just wait for an answer. And sometimes you might just sit in silence. And sometimes in that silence, something will just pop up and you're like, ah, maybe that's it. And then you can move forward in using the method to deal with whatever comes up. Now, I'm going to go through 3 major things that might come up if you just sit quietly and let that answer come to you. And you're looking at a goal that you're not achieving and you're asking yourself, where am I causing this not to happen? Now, the first one of these, well, it's the most obvious. We're going to go from the most obvious to the least obvious in these 3. And the most obvious answer that you might notice that'll come up is, how much time am I actually sitting down and releasing on my goal, working on my goal chart? And I know I'm guilty about this, and I know a lot of graduates, the vast majority, are also guilty of this, where I say, yeah, I got this goal. I got this wonderful goal. I've had it for years, and every time I've shown up for a class, I've written down this goal, and I want to work on it. And maybe I work on it for, a few sessions, and then I forget about it. And then I just stop working on it completely. So when it comes down to how much time am I actually sitting working on my goal charts, releasing all the thoughts and feelings of limitation that come up around it until they're all gone. Not just some of them, all of them. And oftentimes that answer is, it's a very small amount of time. And this goes back to what Lester used to say about going free. And he used to really kind of drill the graduates hard on this point, where he'd say, look, you guys, all of you, you say you want freedom. You want this delicious place of enlightenment, of imperturbability. But then, the next moment after you say you want that, you turn right around and you go right back to being an ego. You go right back into your desires, all of your little pet toys in the world, get involved in that. And that really tells me that you say you want freedom, but your actions are betraying you. You really don't. And he used to really confront the graduates hard on that subject, to wake them up and say, look, don't just say it. Do something about it. Show me you really want it. And he used to always also say that, look, if your objective is X, you want to achieve X, but you put all your time and energy into Y, what do you think you're going to achieve? So we say we want this goal, right? This X thing over here, but we put all of our time into Y, and Y could be like any sort of escape that we often do, like getting on social media. So instead of at least spending an hour a day working on our goal, we spend 7 hours a day on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok, and these other things. It really shows where our interest really lies. And that's what we achieve. We achieve social media brilliance, but not the goal that we say we really want. So that's the most obvious thing that we might be confronted with when we take responsibility and look at, where am I creating myself not to have this goal? Now, the second thing that comes up oftentimes when we ask this question is we start to see our thoughts and feelings about it, our programs, our constant stories, or our beliefs about ourselves. Like I mentioned before, the types of stuff that Lester said that goal charts are really great for in knocking out limitations. The thoughts and feelings of, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, I can't, and on and on and on. And a lot of times when we look, we'll see that we have a clear picture in our head that says, oh, it's never going to happen. That's impossible. How am I ever going to do that? And that picture remains over the years, even though we're working on our goal. And maybe that tells us that even though we might be working on our goal from time to time, that we're just kind of skimming the surface. We're releasing a little bit of it instead of releasing the whole program. And so it's kind of like people that practice affirmations. And what Lester said about people that practice affirmations, right? If you just sit there and you repeat to yourself, I have $1 million. I am a millionaire, right? You do these affirmations. And what Lester said is, if it takes you 1,000 times to repeat an affirmation until it actually happens, that just means that the first 999 times you didn't believe it or you didn't accept it as being true. And that 1,000th time, you actually accepted it as truth. And that's when it immediately happens. Now, what we're doing with the method and working on goal charts has nothing to do with affirmations. It's not about, when we write down a goal, it's not an affirmation that we're repeating to ourselves. We're using it as a tool to bring up our thoughts to the contrary, right? So if our goal is to be a millionaire, and our thought is, well, that's never going to happen. That's impossible. I don't have the resources, the connections, the skills to do that. It's never going to happen. But look, that's just a thought. And what everyone who has practiced the method has proven to themselves to some degree is that you can release these thoughts and feelings. And so all it takes is recognizing, look, if I have this goal and my picture all this time has been, oh, it's never going to happen, how do I expect to ever have the goal? And if I have that thought in my head that just keeps coming up, it's always there, what am I going to do about it? And that just shows us that it's time to really roll up our sleeves, dig in and get to work, and not stop until it's all gone. Not just some of that program, but all of it. And again, for those of us that have actually really worked on this method, we know that we can let these thoughts and feelings go permanently. And that's the whole point of these goal charts also, is to let go of all of our thoughts and feelings until our mind is naturally quiet all the time. It's like we're in a constant meditative state. We don't even need to meditate because we're already there, because we undo all of the stuff that makes the noise in our mind. And we're just quiet all the time. And that's really, arguably, the main reason why we're doing these goals, is it brings us closer to that mastership. But simultaneously, it just gets rid of all these I can'ts, I'm not good enough, all these anti-programs, all of these limitations that are just pictures in our mind that we put in there. And again, we got to take responsibility. If we put those programs in, those beliefs, those pictures, we say, oh, my mind has all this bad information. Well, wait a minute. What did I just say? My mind has this bad information. I must be the owner of it. So what am I going to do about it? If I put that information in there, obviously, I must be able to take it out. So we got to, again, roll up our sleeves, do whatever it takes, and take that nonsense out. And finally, the third thing that stops us, and which is perhaps the least obvious for us to spot when we ask, well, where am I causing myself not to get this goal, is wanting. And that is the basis of the whole method. And the whole, you could say, philosophy behind the method. But it's more than a philosophy, it's a reality. It's the same thing that Jesus talked about. It's the same thing that Buddha talked about. that want is lack. Want is suffering. Therefore, if you let go of wanting, if you let go of desire, and you achieve the desireless state, not only are you no longer suffering, but you're also no longer lacking. If you let go of all your wanting, you move into a world of having. And sometimes that want, because it's so ingrained in us, we've been brought up in a world that has taught us that we need to want things, that we need to acquire, achieve things in order to be happy. But the message of Lester and all these other great masters is your happiness is not out there in things. It's inside of you. And that want for those things keeps you suffering. And a lot of us, we get confused because we think, well, once we get something, oh, I have this wonderful thing. I have this wonderful person in my life. I have this wonderful job, this achievement, this house, these possessions. I got it made. But when we start to examine even the things that we have, they're never good enough. And oftentimes, it takes losing those things to realize, oh, I was always in a precarious position. I left myself open for the rug to be pulled out from underneath me, and here I am in a place where I lost something so precious, and now I'm miserable again. Until we finally wake up and realize that what all these masters have been talking about, we got to let go of all of our wanting. And that's a good thing. Once we let go of all of our wanting, we're in a place where it is impossible to be unhappy, if you could imagine that. And once you're in that place, like Lester points out, anything that you choose, any goal that you would choose to have, just becomes effortless. It's just an effortless thought. Like Lester said, another thing that he used to nudge the graduates to not just release to a point where they feel good and they rest on their laurels, but to really just keep pushing and going all the way, undo the whole thing, is, he said, get to the place where you could just think and have things happen. And wouldn't that be nice? Think about all the goals that you have in life, maybe goals that you've written down, you've been releasing on, that you don't even need to do a goal chart for them. Anything that you could imagine, if you could just think and have it happen. How awesome would that be? Now, Lester makes no bones about it. He says that you are omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. Again, he's talking about being a master. And if that is so, well, what does it take in order to get there? Now, discussing things like this, for some of us, can seem a little bit far out. But what I always point out, especially to people that show up in classes, and some people that they feel like, oh, I'm not doing so good, and I'm doubting myself, and sometimes I'm even doubting the method. I always point out, especially when they're expressing doubts about the method, is, look, you've proven enough in what you've released on so far, right? You've been releasing, you've gotten gains, you've seen the effects of what you've been doing. And so for whatever you have done in releasing, whether you've released just for a month or you've been releasing for 12 years, has anything that Lester said, have you been able to prove him wrong? Or, so far as what you've accomplished, hasn't he been right so far? And no matter who I ask that question to, the answer is always, yeah, he's been right so far. Well, if he's been right so far, then even this far out stuff, maybe he's right about that too. And again, what would it take in order to get to that place where you can prove that to yourself? Again, it's all about taking responsibility, stepping up, having the attitude of, I'm going to do whatever it takes. All right, so let's do a little bit of releasing now. Now that we've talked about this, and I've pointed out like 3 key things that you might notice will come up as answers. When you just pose the question, where am I causing myself not to get my goal? Now, the number one thing that we could probably identify right off the bat, whether it's seeing that we're really not spending very much time working on our goal charts, doing the releasing, or we have thoughts of limitation, we have those I can'ts and so on, or even in the wanting. One thing that we could see that's often there is resistance. Because if we're not working on our goals, why is that? We got resistance. If we have thoughts of limitation, I can't do it, I'm not good enough. A lot of times we'll see that we're resisting those thoughts. Oh, I don't like that thought. I hate that I'm in that position, that I'm not as good as those others out there. And so we resist that thinking, or resist ourselves in the position that we're in. And so one of the major blocks is resistance. So let's work on resistance here. Just to bring it up and let it go so we can see a difference. And we can see a major difference right now towards any goal that we may have. And by the way, starting this week, we're doing a brand new 6-week course on goals and resistance and identifying all of our resistance to having our goals. And as much as we say we want them, oftentimes we're shocked when we realize how much resistance we have unconsciously to having them. But once we look at it, as shocking as it might be, it's pretty obvious. Oh yeah, there's resistance there. And once we see that, we can clean it all up. So if you want to clean up all your resistance and you want to get really good at your goals, I'll leave a link up here and also in the description below in this video to join us this Thursday for the new 6-week course called the Conscious Creation Master Course. Like I said, it's all about goals. It's all about knocking out all of our resistance. It's a fabulous course direct from Lester's teachings, one of his major advanced levels in releasing. That's what we're going to be doing for the next 6 weeks. So check it out and be sure and join us. All right, so take a look at a goal that you have and see if it's true that you haven't really been spending much time working on that goal. You've been procrastinating, you've been telling yourself, I don't have enough time, or you just have been plain forgetting that you even had the goal in the first place. And when you think about this goal and where you're at with it right now, I want you to bring your attention to your stomach or chest area here. This is your feeling center. And so if it helps you, you might even close your eyes and put your head down towards your stomach, your chest. And notice if there's a feeling of a tightness or a contraction. Right now, when you're thinking about that goal of yours. And maybe what's coming up when you're thinking about that goal is, oh, gee, I've had this for so long and it hasn't happened. It's probably never going to happen. And see if that brings up a contraction in your stomach or chest. You notice that? Kind of a tight, clenching feeling right here. It might be lower. Sometimes it's up in your throat, but it's always, right in here, around your stomach or chest area. And what that is your body letting you know that you have resistance. And what that is, primarily, is you're resisting your feelings about it. Right? Maybe you have feelings that in order to get this goal, you might be overwhelmed. You might have to work really hard for it. Oh, I don't want that. Or you might have feelings of failure. I'm not good enough. I'm a crappy releaser. Maybe you're frustrated. Or maybe there's some unexplainable fear that you have. And those feelings, frustration, fear, whatever, they're coming up because they don't belong inside of you. They're coming up to leave. But you resist those feelings and you push them down. You're like, ugh, fear, I don't want you here. And you push it down, and that's why you feel that tightness or contraction. Now, all you have to do is, wherever you feel that tightness right now, open up an imaginary window or door right in front of that feeling right now. And imagine that tightness, that contraction as energy. And imagine that energy now just moving out that door, just leaving out the door. And you could visualize it however you want. You could visualize it as water moving out that door, or light just shining out that door. Just that energy leaving out the door. However it looks like to you. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Just open up that door and let that energy leave. And let it leave some more. And even more. And some more. It's just energy. You don't need to figure it out. You don't need to analyze it. If you got a splinter, you don't care what color it is, what shape it is, how it got there. You just take a pair of tweezers and you pull it out. Right? So that energy, it just wants to leave. So just open up that imaginary door and let it leave. And let it leave a little bit more. And even more. And some more. And even more. And some more. And even more. And a little bit more. And even more. All right? Notice how you feel now. Just notice if you feel a little bit lighter. And that's all we're looking for. It's just a lighter feeling. You notice that? And maybe you also notice that your mind is a little bit quieter. Not as aggravated, not as noisy. And you also might notice that what you're experiencing right now is showing that you are in charge, not your feelings, not your mind, you. You're the owner. You own those feelings. You own that mind. You're the boss. And now you're acting like it. All right, so just open up, let some more of that energy go. And some more. and even more. And just notice, as long as you have that window or door open, you're letting that energy go, it feels nice and light and easy. It really feels good, doesn't it? And if you take responsibility, you'll take this experience and say, well, if I do this for just a couple of minutes, and this feels nice and light and easy, then obviously I can let the whole thing go. And what would it be like if I let go of all of my negative, fearful, aggravated feelings? Not just some of them, all of them. Because if I can let this go in just a couple of minutes, maybe I can let it all go. And what would it take for you to decide to do that? Just a decision, right? Again, take responsibility. So this is a simple demonstration and a reminder of what you ought to be spending your time doing on this earth. Is it inflating your ego and increasing the noise in your mind? Or is it just letting go of all your negativity and quieting that mind? And which of those is a nicer experience? Now that answer is pretty obvious, because if we look at all the masters that have come around and all the different methods that they have, there's a number of ways to get to freedom, but they all point in the same direction. Quiet that mind, whether it's through meditation, through yoga, through breath work, or releasing, or even prayer. It's all about quieting the mind, getting your ego out of the way, and surrendering to the greater you. That's it. And working on goals is a great way to get there. It's a fast way to get there. And it's a fun way to get there, because you get to have not only the cake, but the cherry on top. You get to actually have all these wonderful things where you can just think and have them happen. How nice is that? So if that's what you want, again, join us for the Conscious Creation Master Course. I'll have that link down below, also right there, and I'll see you there. Happy releasing.